Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing great today. Now in today's lecture, we're going to start writing our SQL statements, beginning with the basic select statement. So let's start. I'll open my SQL developer, and because we've established these connections previously, so I'll just come here and click on this HRO plus sign. As you can see, it's loading everything in the HRO schema, and then it will open the worksheet. Okay, so the worksheet is now open. Now, there's something I need you to understand. Before you start writing your basic select statement, you need to have an idea of the structure of whatever table you want to select from. So to do this, just come here, click on the plus sign to expand the tables pane, and then look at how many tables we have in the HRO schema. So let's assume that we want to view details of the employees table. I'll just click on this table, and then you observe that every information, every detail about the table is displayed to me. If you look at this column name, you'll see the names of the different columns we have in this table called employees. And then if you look at this data type, you'll see the different data types for the different column names. Okay, when you create any column, you assign a data type. For instance, the employee ID has a data type number. Okay, and then the length of the number characters is actually 6. And then the employee also has a first name with a data type varchar2, meaning you have just characters here, and then the length of the character is 20. And then the employee also has a last name, which has the data type varchar2, and the length of the character is 25. And then you can look at other columns like email, phone number, hire date, job ID, salary, commission percentage, manager ID, and department ID. Again, if you look towards your right, you'll see the different comments for the different columns. For instance, the employee ID is a primary key of employees table. Okay, and then you see some other details. So this is how you have an idea of the kind of table you want to select from, you want to retrieve data from. This helps you to know the columns. It also helps you to know the different types of constraints that the table has. Another way to do this, let me just close this. Another way to do this is to use a command known as describe. So in this case, I'm going to describe employees. So to execute, I'll just highlight this and then come here and click on this play button to run. So from our script output, you can see the details of the employees table. Okay, it has the employee ID, what we just saw, and then it shows you if you can have a null value or a not null value. This is also a type of constraint, not null constraint. It means the ID column must not be blank. There must be a value. Okay, and then also the data type. So this is how you can actually describe the table. It is very important you take note of this before you start writing your select statements. Again, a short form for describe employees is DESC. Okay, you can just shorten it. Let me clear this buffer, and then you can run this and get the same result. You can see from our output, we have the same result. So having understood this, let's go ahead and write our first select statement. Now we want to do select star from employees. So your basic select statement contains two keywords. Your select, which is used to specify the columns, and then from, which specifies the table you are selecting from. So I'm going to execute this. And let's see the output. Wow. So you can see all the details we have in our select statement of the employees table. Okay, you have your employee ID, you have your first name, last name, email, phone number, hire date, job ID, salary, commission percentage, manager ID, and department ID. Now, one thing you will understand again is the fact that all of the column headings are actually displayed in capital letters. So let me right click and then say count rows. So we have 107 rows in total in the employees table. I'll quickly close this. And then let's also select from another table. Remember, we have different tables in the HRO schema. So we've just selected all details from the employees table. Let's also select all details from the departments table. So I'll do this. And then, as usual, highlight and run this query. So you can see everything we have in the departments table. We have the department ID, department name, manager ID, and location ID. Again, I right click and say count rows. We have just 27 rows. So this is what your basic select statement looks like. Now, assuming you want to select specific columns, you don't want to select all details. Remember, we use the star to denote all details. So when you say select star from departments, you are saying select all data from the departments table. So let's assume that we want to select only specific columns and not all the columns. What do? Very simple. We take away the star and then we start specifying the name of the columns. So I'll start by typing department ID, and then I want to add another column name again. So I'll use a comma to differentiate the different columns, and then say department underscore name from departments. So I'll clear this query results, and then I'll execute this command. So I have just the department ID and the department name. So this is how you select specific columns. And then also you can actually use arithmetic expressions with the select statement. Okay, for instance, let's execute this query. Okay, I'll do this. Let's do select employee ID, first name, and salary. Okay, from employees. Okay, so see our query result. We have the employee ID, we have the first name, and then we have the salary columns all selected. Now, how do we use arithmetic expressions with the select statement. Very simple. I'm going to do this now. In this query, I'm going to include another column, salary plus 500. And then I'm going to do another query, salary plus, then open my bracket, salary multiplied by 0.20. Now, let me try to explain this query before I execute. We are selecting the employee ID, the first name, the salary, and then we are adding 500 to the salary column for each employee in the employees table. And then we are also adding 20% to the salary column. So what you have in this bracket is the salary column multiplied by 20%. Let's execute this query and see what the output will look like. So from our output, we can see the employee ID, we can see the first name, we can see the salary. Then look closely. The salary for Steven is 24,000. And then the next column is salary plus 500, which is this one that we just added now. So salary plus 500 will be 24,500. And then the next column is actually salary plus 20%. So 20% of 24,000 is actually 4,800. And then that's what has been added to the salary column to give us 28,800. The same thing happened to all of the employees. So I hope this is getting clearer to you. Now let's look at another example. And this example is actually using arithmetic expressions with null values. Now, what are null values? Null values are values that are unavailable or unassigned, or they are unknown or inapplicable. Now, understand that null is not the same as zero or a blank space. Let me run this query so you get to understand what I mean. So in this example, I'll select the last name, job ID, salary, and the commission percentage from employees table. Now, if you look at our query result, you will see that we have null values in the commission percentage column. We have null values, and then at some point, we actually have real values and not null values. Let's perform an arithmetic operation on the commission percentage column and see what it is like. So I'll close this query result, and then I'll edit the query and add one more column. Okay, let me add 30 to the commission percentage column. So as usual, I'll alight and then execute this query, and let's see how it goes. So I need to carefully observe the query result. This is the commission percentage column with null values. And then this is the commission percentage column plus 30. So null plus any number is equal to null. This is what I want you to understand. If you perform an arithmetic operation on a null value, the result still gives you null. I hope this is clear enough. Now let's look at another example. Now, assuming you were asked to display your output headings in a user-friendly manner. Let your headings be user-friendly, user-readable. How do you do it? So let me modify this query quickly. So a very simple way to do this is select last name, and then you put the heading you want in double quotation. Let's execute this and let's see. So what did you observe? Instead of showing the regular last underscore name, we have last name, which is in quotation, as our heading. So this is how you display user-friendly column headings. Now let's look at another example. And this example is making use of what is known as the concatenation operator. What does this do? This can actually join strings of characters together. So let's see how it is used in the select statement. Okay, so let's execute this query. Select first name, concatenate with the string work in department, and then the department ID. And let's see what the output is. So you can see first name Stephen, work in department 90. Nina worked in department 90. Diana worked in department 60. Daniel worked in department 100. So this is how you use the concatenator operator. Now let's look at another example. Let me clear this query result and then I'll run this query very quickly. So let me select department ID from employees table and execute. Now, one of the things you'll observe is the fact that we have department 90 repeated, department 60 repeated, department 100 repeated. Okay, so if I right click and then say count rows, I have 107 rows. This is happening because several employees can work in one department. So several employees working in department 90 is what is responsible for showing this multiple department 90. But then we can write a query to show just one value of each department, in which case we won't have duplicate department IDs showing in our query results. How do we do that? Very, very simple. We use another keyword called distinct. Now, one of the things you would have observed in this entire lesson is the fact that keywords in our select statement, in our query, is actually denoted with the blue color. So select is a keyword, from is a keyword, distinct is also a keyword. So if you use the distinct clause and run this query, this is what it gives to you. So it gives to you just single value for each department. 50, 40, 110, 90, 30, 70. We don't have duplicate values again. So if I right click and say count rows, I have just 12 rows. Wow, wow, wow. How nice. So ladies and gentlemen, this is how you use the basic select statement. However, before I end this lecture, I want to give you a few tips on writing your SQL statements. The first tip I want to give to you is that SQL statements are not case sensitive. If you observe, my select keyword is in lowercase. The distinct is in uppercase. So I can change this to be uppercase and leave the others the way they are, and my query will still work fine. So SQL statements are not case sensitive. The next tip I want to give to you is SQL statements can be entered on one or more lines. Now, what this means is I can actually move this to the same line, okay, and run this statement, and it will work perfectly. But the best practice is to use different lines for your select and from, so you can properly identify and read your statements. Now, the next tip I want to share with you is this. Keywords cannot be abbreviated or split across lines. So keywords like your select cannot be abbreviated or splitted. Assuming I split this, okay, and I try to execute this query. You see, it gave me an error. Or let's assume I move the remaining part of the letters to another word, another line, and I try to execute, clear this buffer, and then I try to execute this. It will give me an error. So you cannot actually abbreviate your keywords, and you cannot split them. Now, the next tip I want to give to you is that in SQL Developer, that's this environment we are working with now, is known as SQL Developer. In SQL Developer, your SQL statements can be optionally terminated by a semicolon. You can decide to use a semicolon or not. So in this environment, I can execute this query without the semicolon and I will get my output. But if you're writing your SQL statements in SQL Plus environment, which is a command line tool, you must terminate your statements with the semicolon. Again, I repeat, if you're writing your SQL statements in SQL Plus environment, which is a command line environment, you must terminate your SQL statements with a semicolon. And then also in this SQL Developer environment, if you want to execute multiple SQL statements at once, you must terminate them with a semicolon. So these are just a few tips to help you write your SQL statements. Thank you for watching this video. For those of you that have not subscribed yet to this channel, kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell icon so you don't miss out whenever I upload a new video. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.